Hello, this is Walter, and if you recall last week, we were talking about, as Mike Prevost had uh, brought to my attention, those two questions: using the right tool for the job, but also having the right, looking at it from the aspect of the right job for the tool. Um, and one thing I wanted to talk about today briefly, and I'm not going to get into all of that again. We might consider that down the road a little bit more and delve into that a little deeper. But one of the things I wanted to mention was sometimes we might not have the right implement or tool for the job, and we want to do a certain program or certain exercises, but we just don't have what we need. And I'm going to give you a case in point, an example. Um, there's what's called a landmine that people will insert a bar into, and it pivots in several directions. So you could do different types of exercises with Olympic weightlifting bar, or even just a regular standard like 1/16 inch bar with regular standard plates with the small holes in it. And they work really nice for a lot of different movements that you can do or exercises that kind of broadens out the variations that you can do with the barbell. When you look at those, they're generally pricey for what they are. But if you actually go buy the material at a scrapyard and you have a welder, you can make one. And you'll probably need a couple bolts. And there's different ways you can make them. And there's several different styles on the market. I'm going to show you something that I've used that I made a number of years ago that works really well. So as you can see, it's just a basketball that's been filled with concrete. You can look at the sides, and I left the basketball on the concrete sphere, and it's gotten all kind of chewed up, but it's kind of protected the concrete a little bit. But I also, when I made mine, I put this little old-time collar clamp on here so I could put my bar in here and clamp it down with these. So they're kind of rusted up right now, so I'd have to lube them up with a little WD-40 and break them loose. But I found that I actually hardly ever clamp the bar to this, so this isn't even so this collar isn't even necessary. It's actually buried into the concrete. So what I did is I just took a basketball, and I marked a circle on there with just a marker or a pen, and used like a pill bottle or whatever. Um, Cut a hole in there, and then I cut a couple slits in here and pulled the flaps back, and then I put mixed up some concrete, just regular post hole concrete, and I put some in the bottom, and then I put my tube in there, which was just a pipe that I put duct tape over the end so the concrete couldn't come up inside it. And then I pulled these little flaps back and used like my hand or tablespoon and scooped a bunch of concrete in here and packed it all in there, put the flaps back somewhat, and then just let it sit for a week. And that became my landmine. So all I do is I slide my bar into here, put weights on the other end, and as I lift it, this acts like my pivot point. And it's pretty inexpensive to build. You can use a piece, all you need is any piece of tubing that will fit over the sleeve on the end of your bar, and you need a bag of concrete, just, postal concrete, which is like $3 or something, or somewhere around there, $3, $4. Basketball, I just got, you can get a cheap one, maybe. You might have an extra one laying around, or buy a cheap one at Walmart, for $2, $3. And of course, you always want to put concrete in here first before you put your tube in here, because if you just put your tube all the way in, it's going to be pressing on the other side of the basketball. So then when you fill this all up with concrete, this is nice and solid, but the only thing keeping your bar from punching all the way through is going to be this piece of rubber of the basketball. So what I did is I scooped about 2 inches of concrete into the bottom, so it's about 2 inches thick of concrete, and then I slid my pipe with duct tape on the one end down into here, and then I filled the rest of it in all the way around it, so it sits on that. So when you slide your barbell in here, it's hitting 2 inches of concrete that's all connected to this, so it's not going to blow out the end. So that's how I made mine. It works really good. I've had this thing, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. And I've actually was entertaining the idea of peeling all this old basketball rubber off here. Um, so it doesn't look so ratty, because it's pretty smooth underneath, which I might do that at some point, and then you'll you'll see it's just a concrete sphere under there. So anyway, that's a really cheap way that you can make yourself a landmine, and then you opens up a whole world of possibilities to train with your barbell, which I'll get into those things down the road. In case you didn't notice, this is my my power rack, a couple pins in here, and I built this little board. I'll do exercises off of this thing. I can do reverse hyperextensions by hanging onto this, and there's other things that I can do with this, but it's also my workbench, so my power rack serves a multitude of purposes. And I remember talking to a gentleman at one point that he thought about getting rid of his power rack because he wasn't using it that much. But the problem is once you buy one or if you build one, you're never going to get what you paid for it. And then if you ever want to replace it, it's just very expensive. I built this years ago for $70. Nowadays, to buy a rack this size and everything, you're talking probably $400 and up, $600 or more. So, and I've had this since like 1989. And the nice thing is, if you have a rack and you're worried about, well, I don't have room, I'm not really using it, and maybe I'll sell it, I would just put it in a corner of my garage or shop or room or wherever you have it, and then I'd get some extra pins, just even pipe would fit in your holes, and run them across, and then put some boards in here and create a shelving system, and then you can store stuff on it. And then down the road, if you ever want it, or your children want it to use it, you pull the shelves out and you still got your rack. So it's really a good investment for a lot of different reasons. For me, I weld on this and grind and clamp stuff on it and use it for all types of different things other than just exercising and drawing on, with paper or something when I'm designing stuff. So anyway, I just thought I'd make that point. Back to our landmine, and we're going to learn how to improvise with what we have. So this is the poor man's landmine, and all you're going to do is you're going to take a weight plate and put it onto your bar. Now, you could just simply slide this plate all the way on here, and then this is going to be your pivot point on this plate. But the issue with that is this is going to be sticking out so far that if you lift it up like doing presses, this other end is probably going to hit the ground, which we don't really want. That we're trying to prevent that and provide a little bit better pivot point in a sense. And the reason why this works better than just jamming it into a corner is if you put any kind of weight on the end of that bar on the other end that you're lifting, if there's no weight on this end, it's going to get to the point where the weight that you're lifting on this end is going to make this end really light, and it's going to kind of lift and move around too much for you and what you're trying to do, and make the exercise just too awkward. It's not going to be very efficacious, or whatever you want to call it. It's just not going to work as well. So what I would suggest, I need to get me some decent collars, but because I hardly ever use collars for anything. So what I would do is just take a collar and I put one on here, and then grab your weight plate, put it on here, put another collar on the other end, like that. It locks your plate in here. If you got good collars, you can crank this on here pretty good. Keep the plate out near the end of your bar. And then the other thing is that gives you a little bit longer lever arm, so that when you're lifting it and doing things, the angle isn't going to be so steep if you're doing like presses with it, because once you get to a certain point and the bar is too vertical, there isn't going to be any weight on you. So you want a longer bar, and the Olympic barbell works great if you can pivot off closer to the end. So by using this weight plate on this end, I'll go lift the other end and you'll see the effect. So that's your quick little demo for the day. Whatever you have, think about what you're trying to accomplish, and then just improvise, and then adapt to the circumstance that you're under, and you'll find that you're able to overcome whatever challenge you're faced with. And this is just what I call the poor man's landmine. And if you use a 45-pound plate on here, it'll raise this bar up a little bit higher. And that's something I'm going to talk about too in another video, some benefits of doing it this way. If you're worried about it chewing up your floor, you just simply throw a little rubber mat underneath here, and If this kind of has a tendency to roll around on you too much, you can put another couple of small rubber blocks or plates, rubber pads on either side, or even, you know, take like a old towel and kind of roll it up and make like a donut. And if you tape that with some duct tape or make a little donut, you can put your donut on the ground, and then you can drop this in the middle of that donut, and then it's not going to roll either way, and it's going to isolate this and keep it right in that position. So that's another little trick you can do. It doesn't cost anything. You already have the plates, you already have the bar, you already got a couple collars. And if you're lifting to the other end, and that's being elevated the other end, you don't need collars on that end. So this is a great little trick you can use to make yourself a landmine if you don't have money to make one, or you just aren't quite sure about making one like I did out of a basketball. So there you go. This is Walter, and I'll see you next Wednesday.